The holographic display pulsed with the brilliant golden orange of Orion Empire ships, cutting through the simulated void like predators through water. Admiral Sarvok's mandibles clicked in satisfaction as the simulation concluded, showing the complete decimation of Earth's defenses within a mere 16 rotations. As anticipated, the primates offer no substantial resistance, Sarvok announced to the assembled War Council. His exoskeleton glinted under the harsh light of the command center. Their technological development remains several millennia behind our current capabilities. Captain Traylon, positioned at the far end of the oval table, studied the replay with narrowed compound eyes. As the Empire's foremost science officer attached to the military division, something about the simulation struck him as oddly simplistic. "Admiral," Traylon began, his voice modulated to convey appropriate deference. "The simulation assumes standard defense protocols. We have limited intelligence on human military doctrine." Admiral Sarvok dismissed the concern with a flick of his upper appendage. "Irrelevant. Their detection systems cannot even penetrate our basic cloaking fields. The conquest will be swift and merciful." Strategic Commander Pelta, Sarvok's second-in-command, leaned forward, her carapace reflecting the blue glow of the tactical display. "Perhaps we might consider the fifth protocol in this instance." A murmur rippled through the 12 members of the War Council. The fifth protocol was rarely invoked, a gracious approach that involved providing primitive species with outdated Orion weaponry before conquest. It allowed the Empire to maintain its facade of benevolence while still ensuring inevitable victory. The fifth protocol would preserve the Empire's reputation of magnanimity, Pelta continued. The humans would retain dignity in defeat, having been given a fighting chance. Admiral Sarvok considered this, mandibles working thoughtfully. "What weapons classification would you propose?" "Class 3 disruptors," Pelta replied without hesitation. "The models we retired nearly 800 cycles ago. Their power cells are inefficient by our standards, and the targeting systems are elementary." Traylon processed this suggestion, calculating variables in his mind. Class 3 disruptors were indeed obsolete by Empire standards, but still represented technology beyond current human capabilities. The weapons would be powerful enough to give humans the illusion of defense, while remaining completely ineffective against modern Orion shielding. The fifth protocol would require a 3-cycle delay before our primary assault, Traylon noted, sufficient time for them to examine and attempt integration with their existing systems. Admiral Sarvok's compound eyes gleamed with amusement. "How quaint to imagine primates reverse engineering our discarded technology." He turned to the assembled council. "The motion is approved. Ninth Fleet will deliver the weapons and relay our terms. Full invasion will commence 3 cycles later." The War Council adjourned, its members dispersing to their respective stations. Traylon remained, studying the projection of Earth, a blue-green sphere hanging in simulated space. Something about this conquest felt different. Perhaps it was the strange transmissions they had intercepted, human communications filled with stories of resistance against overwhelming odds. Curious creatures, these humans, with their elaborate mythologies of underdogs and impossible victories. 3 cycles passed with the precision typical of the Orion Empire. Traylon was present in the command center when the scheduled communication from the Ninth Fleet was due. Admiral Sarvok stood at the central platform, carapace polished to a high shine for the anticipated report of human capitulation. The communication window opened, nothing but static. "Signal disruption?" Sarvok demanded. The communications officer's appendages worked frantically across the control surface. "Negative. Admiral. Channel is open. No transmission detected. Initiate emergency protocol. Direct link to Fleet Commander Zex." More static. Seconds stretched into minutes. Admiral Sarvok's exoskeleton darkened with the biochemical indicators of rage. "Deploy reconnaissance drones. Immediate vicinity of Earth's orbital defense grid." Traylon stepped forward. "Admiral." If I may suggest a full spectrum analysis of— Not now, science officer, Sarvok snapped. This is a military matter. The reconnaissance data arrived 20 minutes later. The command center fell silent as the images materialized in the central display. The Ninth Fleet was gone. Not destroyed, no debris field, no radiation signature of combat. Simply gone, as if it had never arrived at Earth's defensive perimeter. Impossible, Sarvok whispered. Within the hour, an emergency session of the War Council convened. Theories were proposed and dismissed. Malfunction, mass desertion, spatial anomaly. None satisfied the evidence. Then, in the midst of deliberation, an unauthorized transmission penetrated the command center's communications grid. A human face appeared on the central display. Female, dark-skinned, with close cropped hair, and eyes that reflected a disconcerting intelligence. "Greetings, Orion War Council," she said, her voice translated by the ship's systems. "Major Lyra of Earth Defense Force, we received your gifts. Thoughtful, but rather inefficient in their original configuration. We've taken the liberty of making some improvements." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun. Traylon observed the biochemical reactions cascading across Admiral Sarvok's exoskeleton, patterns of confusion, rage, and the first microscopic indicators of fear. "Analysis!" Sarvok demanded, turning to Traylon. "Insufficient data," Traylon replied. "However, the implications are concerning. The transmission suggests human forces have not only examined our weapons, but potentially modified them." "Modified Class 3 disruptors?" Pelta scoffed. "Even with modifications, they remain ineffective against our shielding technology." Traylon wasn't convinced. "Permission to conduct a thorough investigation, Admiral." Sarvok stared at the empty space where the human's face had been. "Granted. Assemble a research team. I want answers before we deploy the 10th Fleet." Over the next rotation, Traylon immersed himself in the data. The Class 3 disruptors provided to humans operated on crystalline power cells. Outdated technology by Orion standards, but still sophisticated compared to human energy systems. The disruptors' effective range was approximately 12 kilometers in space, sufficient for close-quarter ship engagement, but useless against the Orion fleet's standard engagement distance of 30 kilometers. Traylon accessed records of human technological development, searching for clues. They had achieved rudimentary quantum computing, developed basic fusion energy, established lunar colonies. Nothing that would suggest the capability to counter Orion technology. Then he found it. An obscure research paper published by a human scientist just months before the Orion arrival. The paper theorized methods of amplifying energy discharge through artificial crystal matrices. The science was primitive, speculative, but the underlying principle was sound. Traylon ran simulations. If humans had managed to replace the standard power cells with custom-designed crystal matrices, the disruptor's effective range could potentially double. Still insufficient against a proper Orion battle formation, but concerning nonetheless. He expanded his investigation, analyzing intercepted communications from Earth's defense network. Hidden among routine transmissions were irregular data patterns, an AI-driven adaptive frequency modulation system. The humans were using artificial intelligence to continuously adjust the weapon's frequency. The implications struck Traylon like a physical blow. Modern Orion shields were calibrated to deflect energy weapons operating within standard frequency ranges. The Class 3 disruptors had fixed frequencies, a limitation that made them obsolete against contemporary defenses. But with continuous frequency modulation, Traylon rushed to the Admiral's quarters, protocol forgotten in the urgency of his discovery. "They've modified the power cells," he explained, projecting his findings onto the Admiral's private display. "Custom crystal matrices that amplify the energy output. But more critically, they've integrated an AI system that continuously modulates the disruptor's frequency." Admiral Sarvok's mandibles clicked in dismissal. Even with doubled range and frequency modulation, Our shields may be vulnerable, Traylon interrupted, earning a sharp glare from his superior. The Ninth Fleet would have approached within 20 kilometers before initiating contact. At that range, with modulated frequencies striking the shields at continuously changing wavelengths. Understanding dawned in Sarvok's compound eyes. Resonance cascade. Traylon nodded grimly. Precisely. The shields would have been penetrated within minutes. And the ships? No debris field suggests capture rather than destruction. I believe the Ninth Fleet has been commandeered. The War Council reconvened within the hour. Traylon presented his findings, noting the biochemical patterns of disbelief and alarm spreading through the assembled officers' exoskeletons. These primates turned our own technology against us, Commander Pelta stated, the implications settling like a physical weight across the council chamber. Admiral Sarvok's response was immediate and unsurprising. We deploy the 10th Fleet at maximum strength. No mercy. No further communication. Planetary bombardment from beyond weapons range. Traylon felt compelled to speak. Admiral, with respect, if they've already adapted our Class 3 weapons, a direct assault may... Are you suggesting the mighty Orion Empire should fear primitives with our discarded technology? Sarvok's exoskeleton flushed with the biochemical indicators of rage. I suggest caution and further investigation, Traylon replied evenly. The humans have demonstrated unexpected adaptability. The council chamber polarized, with military commanders rallying behind Sarvok's call for overwhelming force, while the scientific and diplomatic contingent urged restraint and analysis. In the end, Sarvok's authority prevailed. The 10th Fleet, 3 times the size of the 9th, was dispatched to Earth orbit with orders to maintain distance and commence planetary bombardment. Traylon returned to his laboratory, troubled by the decision but bound by duty. He continued analyzing the available data, seeking deeper understanding of human adaptability. Their historical records revealed a species defined by resourcefulness in the face of limitation. Where Orion civilization had developed through methodical technological progression, humans had evolved through desperate innovation during crises. The contrast was stark and, Traylon had to admit, fascinating. 3 days later, the 10th Fleet arrived at lunar orbit, a safe distance from Earth's defensive perimeter. The command center received the first transmission from Fleet Commander Krell. Position established, weapons systems primed, awaiting final authorization for bombardment. Admiral Sarvok straightened, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Commence firing sequence. Target primary population centers and defense installations. Acknowledged, commencing in 3, 2. The transmission abruptly switched to an external view from the fleet's lead dreadnought. The image showed a massive orbital platform emerging from behind Earth's moon, a structure that had not appeared on any previous scans. What is that? Sarvok demanded. Before anyone could respond, the orbital platform pulsed with energy, not firing, displaying. A holographic message expanded across space, visible to the entire 10th Fleet. Peace demonstration, the message read in Orion script. The next transmission from Commander Krell was tense. Admiral, they're powering up what appears to be a modified Class 3 disruptor array. Massive scale. Our sensors indicate resonance patterns matching our shield frequencies. Impossible, Sarvok hissed. Raise all shields. Prepare to... The command center's display showed a pulse of energy erupting from the Earth platform. It struck the lead dreadnought shields and passed through them as if they didn't exist. The beam terminated just short of the ship's hull. A demonstration indeed. A new transmission cut through the stunned silence of the command center. Major Lyra appeared once again, her expression calm but resolute. Admiral Sarvok, we've taken the liberty of demonstrating our understanding of constructive interference as it applies to your shield technology. The next discharge will not stop short. We now control your 9th Fleet and can neutralize your 10th. We invite you to discuss terms of mutual recognition. The transmission ended. leaving the command center in stunned silence. Traylon watched as Admiral Sarvok's exoskeleton cycled through biochemical patterns of rage, disbelief, and finally, calculation. "Maintain position," Sarvok ordered Fleet Commander Krell. "No offensive action." "To the War Council," he said. "We require additional information before proceeding." Traylon recognized the shift. Sarvok was not considering peace. He was recalibrating his approach to conquest. "Admiral," Traylon ventured, "this may represent an opportunity for diplomatic contact rather than conflict. The humans have demonstrated both technological aptitude and restraint. They could have destroyed the 10th Fleet, but chose demonstration instead." Several council members' appendages moved in gestures of agreement. Even Commander Pelta seemed to be reconsidering her position. "Your scientific curiosity is noted, Captain," Sarvok replied coldly. "But this remains a military operation. We will engage in diplomatic contact solely to assess their capabilities and vulnerabilities." Over the next rotation, tension escalated. The 10th Fleet maintained position near lunar orbit, while Earth's forces established what they called Luna Station Alpha, a transparent dome structure on the Moon's surface. They proposed it as a neutral meeting ground. Traylon found himself increasingly conflicted. His loyalty to the Empire was absolute, yet his scientific mind recognized the remarkable achievement the humans had demonstrated. They had taken obsolete technology and, through sheer ingenuity, transformed it into something that challenged the Empire's military superiority. Such adaptability deserved study, not annihilation. Commander Pelta approached him in his laboratory, her movements conveying caution and privacy. "Your analysis has merit, science officer," she said quietly. "Admiral Sarvok's approach may be suboptimal." Traylon measured his response carefully. "The Admiral prioritizes military objectives, as is his function." "And you prioritize knowledge," Pelta observed. "In this instance, perhaps knowledge serves the Empire better than blind force." Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. Lunar sensors detected unauthorized movement near the 10th Fleet. A small Earth vessel had approached the command dreadnought. In the command center, Admiral Sarvok watched with mounting rage as the situation unfolded. The Earth vessel, barely larger than a shuttle, had somehow penetrated the dreadnought's outer defenses without detection. Before countermeasures could be deployed, the vessel had attached to the command deck and requested permission to board. "This is Admiral Reeves of Earth Defense Force," came the transmission. "I come under flag of truce to discuss terms directly with Admiral Sarvok." "Capture her immediately," Sarvok ordered. The next transmission came not from the Earth vessel, but from within the dreadnought itself. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. Admiral Sarvok, your security protocols have been temporarily overridden. I suggest we meet as equals. My shuttle is unarmed, and I come alone." The implications were staggering. The humans had not only adapted Orion weapon technology, but had apparently deciphered Orion computer systems as well. Under the stunned gaze of the War Council, the main display showed Admiral Reeves, a tall, silver-haired human female, walking calmly through the dreadnought's corridors, escorted but not restrained by Orion Marines. "This is unprecedented," Commander Pelta whispered. Traylon could only nod in agreement. The situation had evolved beyond all predictive models. Admiral Sarvok was escorted to the dreadnought for direct negotiations, a humiliating concession, but one that maintained the appearance of Orion authority. Traylon requested permission to accompany him as scientific advisor, which Sarvok grudgingly granted. Luna Station Alpha proved to be an architectural marvel, a transparent dome that offered an unobstructed view of both Earth and the vast expanse of space. The negotiation table was positioned centrally, with Earth representatives on one side and the Orion delegation on the other. Admiral Reeves greeted them with a formal bow. "Welcome to neutral ground, Admiral Sarvok, Captain Traylon. We appreciate your willingness to engage in dialogue." Sarvok's mandibles clicked in barely contained rage. This dialogue occurs under duress. The Orion Empire does not recognize Earth's military actions as legitimate. And yet here you are, Reeves replied evenly. Shall we discuss how we arrived at this point? Or shall we focus on where we go from here? The negotiations began tensely. Earth representatives outlined their position. They had received the Class 3 disruptors as an obvious prelude to invasion. Rather than rejecting the gift, they had studied, adapted, and improved upon the technology. A demonstration seems appropriate, Admiral Reeves suggested. At her signal, a side chamber opened, revealing a standard Class 3 disruptor mounted on a testing platform. Beside it stood a modified version, its power cell replaced with a crystalline matrix of human design. Major Lyra stepped forward, her movements precise and confident. The standard disruptor can penetrate approximately 3 centimeters of our strongest armor, she explained. Effective but limited. She activated the weapon. A beam of energy struck a target plate, leaving a small, precise hole. Our modified version, however, the second disruptor fired. Its beam, noticeably brighter and more focused, not only penetrated the target plate but continued through 3 additional plates behind it. Impressive engineering, Traylon acknowledged, earning a sharp glance from Sarvok. But the real breakthrough came with frequency modulation, Major Lyra continued, gesturing to a shield generator of Orion design, presumably salvaged from the Ninth Fleet. Your shields operate on predictable frequency patterns. Our AI systems identified these patterns and calculated the precise frequency modulations needed to create constructive interference. The modified disruptor fired again, its beam shifting in frequency as it traveled. When it struck the shield, instead of being deflected, it passed through, the shield actually amplifying its power rather than blocking it. Traylon felt a mixture of scientific admiration and deep concern. The humans had not merely adapted Orion technology. They had fundamentally understood and transcended its limitations. This demonstration is meaningless, Admiral Sarvok declared. You possess a fraction of our military capacity. The Orion Empire spans 17 star systems. Earth is a single planet. Admiral Reeves nodded. True. We cannot match your numbers or your industrial capacity, but we don't need to. She leaned forward. We need only demonstrate that conquering Earth would cost more than it's worth. The negotiations continued for hours, moving from military capabilities to potential terms of coexistence. Throughout, Traylon observed the human approach with growing fascination. They operated with a blend of caution and boldness, respect and defiance. They acknowledged Orion's superiority in many technologies, while demonstrating their unique innovations in others. As the formal session concluded, Admiral Reeves approached Traylon privately. Your questions during the demonstration suggested genuine scientific curiosity. Captain. Traylon modulated his response carefully, aware of Sarvok watching from across the chamber. The Empire values knowledge in all forms. As do we, Reeves replied. Your Class 3 disruptors taught us more about energy manipulation in 3 days than we'd learned in a decade of research. Imagine what we might achieve through collaboration, rather than conquest. Before Traylon could respond, a priority communication interrupted the proceedings. Marshal Vexar, Sarvok's superior and commander of the Orion Empire's military forces, appeared on the main display. Admiral Sarvok, you will return to command immediately. Captain Traylon, you will remain to continue scientific assessment. The abrupt command surprised both delegations. Sarvok departed with poorly concealed rage, leaving Traylon in the unexpected position of senior Orion representative. It seems our discussions will continue without the Admiral, Traylon observed once Sarvok had departed. Admiral Reeves nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps that's for the best. Science may find common ground where military doctrine cannot. Over the next rotation, Traylon engaged in detailed technical exchanges with Earth scientists. He learned of their quantum computing breakthroughs, their innovative approaches to energy generation, their remarkable materials science. In each field, they lagged behind Orion technology and raw power, but demonstrated creative applications that Orion scientists had never considered. Meanwhile, a tense standoff continued between the 10th Fleet and Earth's defense forces. The humans maintained their position of strength. The captured 9th Fleet vessels and their planet-based weapons platform, ready to neutralize Orion shields. Then came the news that changed everything. Marshal Vexar himself arrived at Luna orbit aboard the Empire's flagship, the Dominance. A direct communication from Vexar reached both the Orion delegation and Earth's representatives simultaneously. The Orion High Command has reviewed the situation, Vexar announced, his ancient exoskeleton bearing the marks of countless campaigns. We hereby establish an immediate cessation of hostilities and propose formal diplomatic relations with Earth. The announcement stunned both delegations. Admiral Reeves recovered first. We welcome this development. Marshal Vexar, may I ask what prompted this decision? Vexar's compound eyes seemed to focus on something beyond the visual field. The Orion Empire has encountered many species in its expansion. Most fall into predictable patterns of response. Earth does not. His mandibles clicked in what Trelin recognized as a gesture of respect. Your adaptation of our technology demonstrates a cognitive approach worthy of consideration rather than conquest. The true meaning was clear to Trelin, though perhaps not to the humans. The Empire had calculated the cost of subduing Earth and found it prohibitive, not merely in military resources, but in potential future developments. A species that could so quickly reverse engineer and improve upon Orion technology represented both a threat and an opportunity too significant to approach through standard conquest protocols. The formal peace treaty was negotiated over the following 3 rotations. The Orion Empire recognized Earth's sovereignty and established an exchange commission for mutual technological and educational development. The 5th Protocol weapons would remain with Earth as a gesture of good faith, though their deployment was restricted to defensive purposes within Earth's solar system. As the final documents were prepared, Trelin found himself appointed as the first technical ambassador to Earth, a position created specifically for this unprecedented relationship. Admiral Reeves would serve as his counterpart in the Exchange Commission. A scientist rather than a warrior, she observed during the appointment ceremony. Your empire shows wisdom in this choice. The empire adapts, as do all successful civilizations, Trelin replied. Your response to the Class 3 disruptors demonstrated that adaptability often surpasses raw technological advantage. We've never been more dangerous than when backed into a corner, Reeves said with a smile that Trelin was learning to interpret as wry rather than threatening. Necessity breeds innovation. The 9th Fleet vessels were returned to Orion control, though the humans retained detailed schematics as insurance against future aggression. The resonance technology that had neutralized Orion shields was placed under joint supervision, a technology too powerful for either civilization to control unilaterally. In the Orion Empire's Grand Museum, a new exhibit appeared, a crystal matrix of human design beside an original Class 3 disruptor power cell. The plaque read, "A testament to the power of adaptation and the danger of underestimation." Marshal Vexar himself attended the exhibit's unveiling, his ancient exoskeleton now bearing the formal markings of peace rather than conquest. The Empire has stood for 9,000 cycles, he told the assembled Orion dignitaries. It has done so not through rigid adherence to superiority, but through recognition of worthy adversaries and allies. His compound eyes turned to the human delegation, led by Admiral Reeves. Humanity has proven itself both. In providing outdated weapons, we sought to offer dignity in defeat. Instead, we found equals in innovation. Trelin, standing at the intersection of both delegations, felt the weight of historical significance. The Empire had never before retreated from a planned conquest, yet here they stood, celebrating mutual recognition rather than domination. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Reeves approached Traylon privately. "Your scientific papers on crystalline energy modulation have been enlightening. Our researchers have already proposed several applications beyond weapons technology. As have ours, based on your AI frequency modulation principles," Traylon replied. "It seems our species complement each other's approaches." Reeves nodded. "Different evolutionary paths leading to different problem-solving methodologies. Together, we may achieve what neither could alone." "A more valuable outcome than conquest," Traylon acknowledged. "And a more lasting one." Reeves gazed at the exhibit, the physical representation of humanity's unexpected defense. "We turned your cast-offs into our salvation. Imagine what we might build together when neither is trying to destroy the other." As the human delegation departed for Earth, and the Orion ships prepared to return to Imperial space, Traylon found himself contemplating the unexpected trajectory of events. The Empire had intended a routine conquest of a primitive species. Instead, they had discovered a civilization that turned limitations into strengths, that transformed outdated technology into unexpected innovation. In his first official report as technical ambassador, Traylon wrote, "The human capacity for adaptation represents both opportunity and caution for the Empire. Their technological development may lag behind ours by millennia, but their cognitive approach, driven by necessity and limitation rather than abundance, produces solutions our methodologies might never consider." The fifth protocol, intended as a gesture of superiority, became instead a catalyst for unprecedented innovation. They did not defeat us with superior technology. They defeated us with superior tactics, turning our own discarded technology against us in ways we had never imagined. In this lies the lesson. It is not the tool, but the wielder that determines outcome. The Exchange Commission represents not merely diplomatic expediency, but strategic necessity. We must understand this adaptive methodology, this human capacity to transcend limitation through creative application. In their constraints, they have found freedom of thought that our abundance may have inadvertently suppressed. The humans have a saying, "Necessity is the mother of invention." Perhaps the Empire has grown too accustomed to abundance. Perhaps, in studying human adaptability, we might rediscover aspects of our own evolutionary resilience, long forgotten in our expansion. They have shown us that even our discarded technologies, in the right hands, can become formidable. This alone warrants not just our respect, but our attention. Marshal Vexar's response was brief, but significant. "Proposal accepted. Expand the Exchange Commission's mandate. We have much to learn from these humans." As Traylon's shuttle descended toward Earth's surface for his first extended diplomatic mission, he watched the blue-green planet grow larger in the viewport. 3 cycles ago, it had been merely another conquest target in the Empire's expansion. Now it represented something unprecedented, a species that had earned Orion respect not through superior force, but through superior adaptation. The humans had taken the Empire's technological scraps and transformed them into shields and spears of their own design. They had studied Orion weaknesses and exploited them not with brute force, but with precise, calculated innovation. They had, in essence, defeated the Empire without firing a shot, turning intended conquest into reluctant partnership. As the shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, Traylon reflected on the irony. The Empire had given humans outdated weapons as a token gesture before conquest. Now they feared, and respected, not the weapons themselves, but the human capacity to reinvent them. In their quest to provide a dignified defeat, the Orion Empire had instead discovered a worthy ally, and perhaps, Traylon thought, a necessary teacher in the forgotten art of adaptation. The crystalline matrix on display in the Grand Museum would serve as a permanent reminder. Never underestimate a species that thrives on overcoming limitations. For in those limitations lie the seeds of unexpected strength. Admiral Reeves was waiting when Traylen's shuttle landed. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador," she said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Traylen touched his appendage to hers, the formal gesture of respect between equals. "Thank you, Admiral. I believe we have much to learn from each other." "Indeed," she replied, looking up at the shuttle, an advanced piece of Orion technology now resting on human soil. "Though I suspect the most important lesson has already been exchanged." "And what lesson is that?" Traylen asked, genuinely curious about the human perspective. Admiral Reeves smiled. "That the most dangerous weapon in the universe isn't technology. It's the mind that wields it." As they walked toward the Earth delegation headquarters, Traylen reflected that perhaps this was the most significant discovery in the Empire's 9,000-cycle history. Not a new world or technology, but a new understanding. That true power lay not in technological superiority alone, but in the adaptability to transform limitation into advantage. The humans had taught the mighty Orion Empire to fear not their weapons, but their tactics, and in that fear had been born a respect that conquest could never have achieved. The exchange of knowledge had begun, and with it, perhaps, a new chapter for both civilizations, one written not through domination, but through mutual recognition of different but equally valuable paths to innovation. The Fifth Protocol, designed to offer dignity in defeat, had instead opened the door to unprecedented partnership. The unintended consequence of underestimation had become the foundation for unimagined collaboration. In the end, Traylen realized, the greatest technology of all might be the capacity to learn from those we once dismissed as lesser. The humans had proven themselves masters of this technology, and now, perhaps, the Empire would learn it from them.